Now, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh. Our guest is Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, active duty Army officer assigned to the Pentagon, has come out with several reports, classified and unclassified reports, says what the military is telling the American public is not true about the longest war in U.S. history, the war in Afghanistan. He'll be awarded the Ridenour Prize in Washington, D.C. this month. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Davis, you echoed a line of John Kerry, not when he was senator, but when he returned from Vietnam, when you say, how many more men must die in support of a mission that is not succeeding? Can you please continue with that thought?
Yeah, you know, it's frankly the most painful thing, and was the driver that led me to make these reports, because I mean, I go out there and I see these guys, and they do make you as proud as what you see, and in television and walking through the airports and all these praises we heap on these guys, and they have earned every one of those, because you see these guys, the privates, the sergeants, lieutenants, the captains, the guys who go outside the wire and do this fighting every day, and they are doing as professional a job and as terrific as you can possibly do under the circumstances. But when you're given a mission that cannot succeed militarily, then what is the purpose of the mission? I mean, why are we even doing this if the United States is not benefited? Now, look, I'll be the first to admit, and let me bluntly tell you, anyone who puts on the uniform in the United States military understands explicitly that you may one day have to put your life down. You may have to sacrifice your life in order to ensure the security and the safety of the United States and its citizens. And the vast majority of everybody who does that does so not simply willingly, but actually with a certain amount of pride that you're doing something that matters, that keeps your country safe, and you're pleased to do that. As an officer and a leader, I know that I may have to give orders someday to accomplish American objectives that will result in the men that I give those orders to dying. And that's a very heavy thing, but it's something that I would not hesitate to do, if in the execution of my job. But we have to be incredibly careful about giving those soldiers and those leaders missions to ask them to put people's lives at risk, to risk their own lives when the United States is not going to be benefited militarily or any other way. That's a problem.
Last month, the top U.S. commander in Afghanistan predicted the United States needs to prepare for heavy fighting during the upcoming year. General John Allen made the comment under questioning from Republican Senator John McCain of Arizona.
So basically, you have no opinion here at the end of March of 2012 as to what our military presence would be in 2013.
Well, my opinion at this particular juncture, but it's not my recommendation.
What is your opinion at this particular juncture?
My opinion is that we will need significant combat power in 2013, sir.
Like 68,000?
68,000 is a good going-in number, sir, but I owe the President some analysis on that.
Lieutenant Colonel Davis, what do you make of General John Allen's comments?
Well, I mean, I'm not privy to what he's, the rationale that he's using for his comments there, nor the knowledge of what he's planning to do. So, I mean, I frankly can't really discuss what he said.
But can you comment on it in a general way vis-a-vis the comments that you make in your report about the efficacy of the U.S. military operation in Afghanistan, the effectiveness of the numbers of troops in Afghanistan and what they have succeeded in doing against the insurgency?
Sure. Yeah, a couple of key questions that I would have liked to have heard the senator ask, or any of the other senators for that matter, is, okay, in order to what? What do we need those troops for? If the president's stated objectives, as he put forward and repeated on June 22nd of 2011, when he made the decision public that he's going to withdraw 10,000 in 2011 and another 23,000 this year, with the intent of transitioning to Afghan lead, etc., and then out by 2014. In terms of that, if that's what the president said we're going to do, then what is the objective of the military campaign this summer and to go through the, quote, fighting season of 2013? What is it that you're intending to accomplish that you don't have accomplished right now? In other words, I want to defeat the bad guys in location X, Y, and Z and degrade them to some measurable amount in area W or something to that effect. But I have been looking very in detail for those kinds of answers, just in public statements. And all I keep hearing, especially among a lot of these pundits that seem to really be repeating a lot of these lines, they say, oh, we have to go through at least 2 more fighting seasons before we start drawing down. But I don't ever hear them say, in order to what? Why do we need to do that? And is it just some amorphous in order to diminish the Taliban? I mean, what sense does that make? In all honesty, if you're telling me that with 100,000 U.S. troops and about 50,000 NATO troops throughout the entire amount of time that we had the surge forces in there, if they were unable to materially degrade the Taliban, then what logic are you going to place that as we're taking 33,000 out, as we're drawing down significant amounts of financial inputs, that suddenly the Afghan security forces who have been unable to, with our help, to knock down the Taliban are now suddenly going to be able to do it on their own? I don't see the logic in that, frankly.
Last year, President Obama announced a plan to gradually decrease troops in Afghanistan, implying, in fact, that the 2009 troop surge had put the U.S. in a position of strength.
Thanks to our extraordinary men and women in uniform, our civilian personnel, and our many coalition partners, we are meeting our goals. As a result, starting next month, we will be able to remove 10,000 of our troops from Afghanistan by the end of this year, and we will bring home a total of 33,000 troops by next summer, fully recovering the surge I announced at West Point. After this initial reduction, our troops will continue coming home at a steady pace as Afghan security forces move into the lead. Our mission will change from combat to support. By 2014, this process of transition will be complete, and the Afghan people will be responsible for their own security. We're starting this drawdown from a position of strength.
Lieutenant Colonel Davis, why do you think that the 2009 troop surge was not a success in Afghanistan?
Well, I made this argument in 2009 that I argued against having the surge then because I said that it's not even close to being enough. There was a paper which is on still available on the Small Wars Journal, I believe, website and a number of others out there. It was called Go Big or Go Deep. And in that, I examined what I call the Go Big plan, which is what General McChrystal was recommending at the time, which is what they ended up following. I said, if we execute this mission, here's the things we can expect, and here's the risk that we incur when we do this. And one of the risks that I talked about was the number of troops. I heard retired General Jack Keane the other day, I believe it was on Fox News, arguing that, basically the president hamstrung the operation from the beginning because he only gave General McChrystal 30,000 instead of the 40,000 we need, which he says caused us to not be able to go after the north and the south and the east at the same time, but we had to sequentially do it instead of concurrently executing the plan. And so now then, we have to pivot from the south over to the east at this point to try to basically knock out the insurgency instead of doing it together. That was ridiculous from the beginning, and it's even more so now. 40,000 was never enough. Maybe 100,000 additional troops might have given you the ability to militarily pacify the insurgency. Now, of course, if you had that, then you incur all kinds of additional problems with the foreigners and going into more places and causing basically the rise of Taliban in areas where they weren't before, even to a larger extent. So I'm not advocating that was the answer. In fact, I was advocating the opposite. Don't put those troops in there. But 40,000, if you want to militarily pacify, was never enough. And that was graphically demonstrated to me as I went through the country to see, where the troops or the surge troops were and where they weren't. And so you couldn't do it with 40,000. So there again, you asked the question, what was it they were trying to accomplish? Because in my professional and personal opinion, basically what we did was tactical activity. We went on patrols, we went on, attack missions, etc., but never enough to actually turn the tide militarily. And we now see graphically that's exactly what didn't happen.
I want to ask you about the American soldier accused of killing 17 Afghan civilians and his claim of suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. According to his lawyer, the alleged shooter, U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Robert Bales, doesn't remember the massacre. This is his lawyer, John Henry Brown, speaking after meeting Bales in their first face-to-face meeting.
He doesn't remember everything the evening in question. That doesn't mean he has amnesia.
You were in, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, Panjwai province, where this took place.
I was.
Your thoughts on this mass killing?
Well, I mean, look, let me just flat out and unequivocally say that if this guy did exactly what he's accused of, then he deserves the harshest punishment he can, just because of the gross violation of just the most basic of human rights to all of those innocent Afghan people, and as well as putting his fellow troopers in considerably more danger. So I have no sympathy for him. It doesn't matter what may have happened to him. He put more people in danger, and he took the lives of children. And I mean, I'm just going to be blunt. I got no sympathy for that.
Why have you decided to come forward now, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, coming out with this report, asking why the U.S. isn't out of Afghanistan now? Why are you speaking out now?
I'll tell you that I can answer that very clearly. And I mentioned this to a number of the folks that I worked with during the time in there. As I continued to see report after report of, success, and we're winning, and we're doing, making remarkable progress, these incredible superlatives used to describe our mission there, which were so far afield from what was going on. And yet men that I saw and met during my time there were subsequently killed in action, and others that I don't know, but that I would read stories about. And I see that men are now dead, and I don't know why they're dead. I don't know what benefit my country derived from the loss of their life. And of course, I'm thinking about those, thousands who are, right now as we're having this conversation, there are thousands of Americans who are alive, full of body, full of hope, full of dreams, want to accomplish many things, have families, etc., who, known but to God, are marked for either death or wounding or having their limbs blown off or their genitals blown off in between now and this so-called end of fighting season 2013. And if you can't tell me that they're going to gain some benefit for my country, I just morally cannot keep quiet. I mean, the Army is built on what's called the Army 7 values, and it's so important that we constantly reinforce those, honor, integrity, moral courage, those kinds of things that need to animate everything that you do. And one of the things that we're taught is that, if you see something that's wrong, you've got to have the moral courage to do something about it. And in my view, this fell right into that category. So, loyalty is one of those values, and I believe that my loyalty to the soldiers in the service who are still alive and who are still not wounded, but will lose their lives or will lose, their limbs or be, suffer casualties and wounds in between now and then. I just owed it to them to do whatever I could to try to bring light to this so that we can avoid that if at all possible.
How did your colleagues respond, though, once news of your report came out? And how did senior U.S. military officials respond?
Well, I'll tell you, in terms of the communications that I received, whether notes on my website or emails sent directly to me, scores of them, all but 2 of them were extremely supportive. I mean, extremely supportive, which, really encouraged me. And most of those were senior enlisted guys, sergeants, first sergeants, or junior officers, captains, lieutenants, a number of, enlisted guys. And I was really, heartened by that, because they said, well, at least somebody finally stood up and said what we all see, kind of thing. I did know that the higher up in rank you went, then the lower the percentage of folks that said good job. And in terms of the senior leaders, look, I got to give some credit where it's due. Early on, I was told that one of the general officers that was in charge of the area where I worked put out, and my direct 06 colonel put out that there would be no adverse action taken, that this guy's got a job to do here at the Pentagon, and he's going to continue doing it. He's not going to have his security, issues revoked or anything like that. And they have kept their word on that, and they deserve some credit for that, because they could have taken a different course of action. They could have tried to shut me up. They could have done a lot of things, and I give credit for that. So, fortunately, all is not bad.
Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, we want to thank you very much for being with us. An active duty Army officer assigned to the Pentagon. In his recent report, he accuses top U.S. military officials of misleading the American public about the war in Afghanistan. Part of the report was published in the Armed Forces Journal in an article called Truth, Lies, and Afghanistan. He'll be awarded the Ridenour Prize for Truth-Telling in Washington, D.C. this month. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The Warren